This is Variety saying, making The Last of Us Season 2, casting Abby, video game changes, and why the creators are at peace with telling a different version of the story. And now I initially heard about this from Wario64 on X, who said, Neil Druckmann on the possibility of The Last of Us Part 3. I guess the only thing I would say is don't bet on there being more The Last of Us. This could be it. So first of all, I think I speak for everyone when I say fuck Neil Druckmann. And I'm not a big fan of the direction that he's taken things. And I think any longtime fans of The Last of Us would feel similar. Now, full disclosure, I will say my initial playthrough of Last of Us 2, I actually enjoyed. I thought it was fun. I didn't mind. I know there's going to be some spoilers in this about The Last of Us, but holy shit, if you don't know it by now, I mean, Mario saves the princess at the end of the game, guys. Like, this is, you should know, this game's 20 fucking years old. That Joel dies at the beginning of The Last of Us 2. And that really pissed off a lot of people. It didn't piss me off, though, because this is before me realizing what was actually happening, and I was just taking it in for the art that it was, and I was like, okay, I'm enjoying this game. It is what it is. That's a curious direction to take it, but I'm along for the ride. You know, I'll see where this goes. And I enjoyed my experience playing the game. And I think overall, the game is a decent game from a certain perspective. From another perspective, a game player perspective, it's the dumbest thing you could possibly do, because you have what could have been one of the most amazing worlds and franchises to build off of with lore, and you basically started it and stopped it in two parts of a game. And it was a great storyline. Like, part one is up there with some of the best all-time games ever created. And if you disagree with that, I would question if you actually played the game. I mean, not every game's for everyone, but highly recommend Last of Us Part 1. And that was one of those games that took me a while to get to, and in a weird way, I'm glad it did, because when I heard The Last of Us 2 was coming out, that's what actually motivated me to be like, okay, no, everyone's telling me I got to play Last of Us. I'm going to play Last of Us to prep for Last of Us Part 2. And I beat The Last of Us right at around the same point that Last of Us 2 was launching. So I had no waiting period. And I think that might have actually been what impacted my mentality about it, where I didn't have to wait 8 years or 6 years or whatever it was for the sequel to come out, whatever it was. It was just, it felt like I was just playing the same game with a continued storyline. So for me, it was like all one shot. And I was like, oh, so the story takes the turn and he dies at this point. Okay, this is weird. Like, that's where my brain was with it. But I would imagine, if, just like full transparency, if I had played the game, loved it, played it again, loved it, and was super hyped and super amped for years and years and years, and part 2 finally comes out, and that's the shit they threw at me, I'd be like, what the fuck? No. What are you doing to my, this is my Joel. What are you doing to my Joel? So I'd be pretty pissed. So I think that's what I'm getting at with this whole, it's a matter of perspective, where if you did what I did with it, it would have softened the blow quite a bit. And I'm just like thinking of this on the fly right now. And I really think that's what the difference was, because now looking back in hindsight, I can take a step back and reflect and be like, now I see why everyone's really pissed about this, and why I actually was okay with it. So I again, not trying to ride the fence with it, but I really do understand both sides of this very well, personally. And I'll tell you guys straight up, if you haven't played part one, play part one and then part two right after it. And you probably wouldn't mind part two as much as everyone that was waiting forever. And oh, by the way, yes, part two is woke as fuck. There's a bunch of lesbian shit in it. They kill the main character off. Like, it's a bunch of shit that's like, what are we doing with this game? But you got to put yourself back in the mindset of someone who wasn't living in this world of understanding wokeness. I didn't even know what the word woke meant back then. I was just like, oh, it's a game. All right. Now I'm a chick kissing a chick. All right. I mean, like the guitar scene with Take On Me was awesome. It was awesome. Like that rendition of the song, like I still play it when I'm driving my car. Like I love hearing that version of the song. Hate me all you want, hate the game all you want, but you got to be objective and be like, that's a banger rendition of Take On Me. It's really good. But anyways, that's just my personal feelings on the situation. Your mileage may vary on that, and many do. But the more I found out about Neil Druckmann, the more I'm like, no, I just don't like this guy. I thought he was being like artistic with a vision and had like a grand plan with what was happening. Like, no, he was just a hardcore wokey that fell victim to the mind virus and was like, okay, I got people hooked on a great game that was not woke at all. Time to completely shift direction and completely fuck people over. Not so different, by the way, than Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 with people that played the original and that were really upset about the direction that Vavra took that. So I totally get that too, by the way. Like, I get it. I totally get it. I almost think that that's a really good parallel between the two games or four games. But anyways, so this comes through us from Variety. Now that I'll finally get to it. Says, you want to see something cool? On July 3rd, 2019, Neil Druckmann first said those fateful words to Craig Mazin inside the Santa Monica offices of Naughty Dog, the developer behind the blockbuster 2013 video game The Last of Us. As the game's writer and creative director, Druckmann was the lead architect of its astonishing story of grief and trauma amid a zombie apocalypse. And my goodness, did he do, as much as I don't like the guy, did he do such a great job with the first one? Masterful. Absolute fucking cinema. Absolute fucking cinema. Mazin, whose gripping limited series Chernobyl had just concluded on HBO, revered the game and had come to Naughty Dog to persuade Druckmann to adapt it for television. Which, by the way, I'm loving the TV series. TV series is great. Like, I'm super hyped for season 2. I'm watching it with my wife, and that's how you know it's good, because my wife hates zombie shit. She's like, no, I don't like it's zombie. I don't. I'm like, no, trust me. This is really good. This is really good. She's like, oh, it's based on a video game. I don't want to watch a show based on a video game with zombies. I'm like, trust me, you will like this. I promise you. And sure as shit, she's like, damn, you're right. I went into it expecting not to like it and walked out of it saying, I can't wait for season 2. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you what happens, because the whole time I'm watching it, I know everything that happens because I play the game. Yes, I play games. And she's like, did you know that? I was like, yes, I know everything about this. I love this game. I love everything about season 1. It's amazing. And she has no idea about season 2. So it's kind of funny. She's like, so what's going to happen next? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. I'll let it happen. Polly Small says, that show sucks. When Druckmann picked up a PlayStation controller during that meeting, it wasn't so he and Mazin could discuss one of the game's fight sequences involving monitoring hordes of infected, nor was it to watch one of the many poignant scenes featuring the two protagonists, Joel, a hard-hearted smuggler, and Ellie, a headstrong teenager immune to the fungal pandemic that's decimated the planet. Instead, Druckmann, in a display of immediate trust, showed Mazin a scene between Joel and Ellie from the game's top secret sequel, Last of Us Part 2, nearly a year before it would be available to the public. Oh, that's the other reason why I'm not a big fan of Druckmann and Naughty Dog, because when there were leaks coming out about Last of Us Part 2, channels were covering it, including like friends of the channel, Geeks and Gamers, got a strike on their channel for covering the leak. Not a warning, not a takedown request, a strike, which you don't do to a channel unless they are doing something completely awful, like straight up streaming a movie or stealing straight content from someone else. Like, you don't strike other channels. That was insane. And it wasn't just them. It was a lot of them. So when you do that, people make a note of it and be like, okay, fuck this person forever. If that ever happens, that's why you don't do that. That's why you don't do that. As it turns out, Druckmann didn't need any convincing about doing a show. Within a week, they were pitching the first season of The Last of Us to HBO. Their easy rapport is apparent even as Mazin and Druckmann sit in one of Naughty Dog's austere conference rooms, part of what Mazin affectionately calls this concrete palace. To discuss the show's second season, ahead of their South by Southwest panel with the cast, season 2 premieres April 13th. Oh, I'm hyped. I shouldn't be, by the way, but I am. I'm very torn about this. All right, guys, I'm just being honest. Mazin brags that he got to play part 2 himself as they wrote season 1. It was awesome. One of countless examples of the bond they cultivated in those early months. That bond has bloomed into a creative partnership that has redefined what's possible for video game adaptations. A genre formerly as synonymous with prestige drama as fast food is with fine dining. On The Last of Us, Mazin and Druckmann struck a rare balance between visceral action and nuanced storytelling that enthralled gamers and civilians alike. While Joel and Ellie's Odyssey through a landscape ravaged by global pathogen hit audiences right where they've been living for the past 3 years after its January 2023 premiere. The Last of Us joined Game of Thrones and Squid Game as one of the few hugely popular series that are also critical and award season darlings. It averaged nearly 32 million viewers over the first 90 days across all HBO platforms, garnering 24 Emmy nominations, including drama, actor, actress, and wins for guest actors. It was transcending gaming culture. We'll put it that way. Like I said, personal experience. My wife never played the game, nor would she want to sit down and watch me play this game. As much as I wish she would, I know she would not enjoy that. But the series was perfect for us. Revco says, but is it better than Robocock? Probably. Mazin and Druckmann knew that season 2 would be a far more daunting endeavor. Along with the usual pressures of following an overnight smash, part 2 upends fundamental things fans loved about the first game. You don't say. Spoiler alerts again. It alienates Joel and Ellie from each other, pushes the story to jaw-dropping extremes, and forces players to empathize with by playing as the game's central antagonist, Abby, who will be played by Dopesick Emmy nominee Caitlin Dever. While part 2 was lauded as one of the best games ever made when it debuted in 2020, its provocations also caused a cascade of online fan fury that still percolates. This is very good reporting. I got to call it out when I see it, because this is actually something that I would write. I feel like that's very fair. When it debuted, everyone was like, this game's amazing. Well, not everyone. There were some people detracting from it. But as time has gone on, more and more people have been like, wait, what the fuck you do with this game and why did you do that? Why'd you take the storyline that way? You made us fall in love with these characters just to fucking hit us with a 3-wood. It was not fair. On top of that, part 2 is such a colossal experience, taking almost twice as long to complete as part 1, that adapting it would necessitate telling the story over multiple seasons, which I do believe. I do agree with that. Because part 2 is a lot more scenes than part 1. A lot more things happen in part 2. None of that phased Mazin. If anything, it made him more eager to get to work. One of the notes that I resent the most is, "We love this thing. More of it, please," he says. No, you love it because that's the right amount of it. When you do more, what makes it special starts to dissipate. Damn, guys. This guy just told me I should stop streaming. It becomes comfort food. And if there's one thing about The Last of Us, it is not comfortable. Druckmann leans forward, turning a thought around in his head. "I hope this doesn't sound arrogant," he says, "but I think you have to have a certain level of success to have the confidence to do what we're doing, both in the game and in the show. Because on paper, it looks so risky, so fucking dramatic. Just do the fucking show. I mean, come on. You did season 1. It was very well done. I don't foresee season 2 being any more challenging. It just might take longer to tell the story. I'm sure it's a lot of work, by the way, but let's not invoke the drama of, ooh, doing this season 2 is going to be risky now." But this is where I love working with Craig, because he thinks like me. Sometimes you have a feeling that the story has to be this and only this, and you just have to commit. Well, hold up. Are they not going to kill off Joel? I wonder what people would think about that. If they take some creative liberties, because it's not so different than the show. You guys familiar with the show Dexter? Because Dexter, don't quote me on this and correct me if I'm wrong, but Dexter was based off of a comic book, I believe, a comic book series or a book series. Maybe it was a book series, not a comic book, but it was based off of that. And it was following it very closely, one for one, for a while, until it didn't. And then they split apart from the book series. Thank you, Pray to Mind. Okay, so it's a book series. So they split apart from that to keep the series going. So it wouldn't be the first time that creative liberties would be taken to change the canon of a series. And Pedro Pascal is a very popular actor that's literally acting in every single show and movie that's out there right now. So I'd imagine they're not in a rush to kill him off. So I'd be curious. I'd be really curious to see if they might rewrite the story. Hit him with the golf club, but he somehow survived it. And then it's a different storyline, almost like a 1B revisionist. It makes you wonder. And that's the other thing too. When Neil Druckmann talks about, which we'll get to later in this, I'm sure, but let's go here right now, just in case I don't get to it. The possibility of a Last of Us Part 3. I guess the only thing I would say is don't bet on there being more of Last of Us. This could be it. That's great, bro. That's great. But what I could see happening, because money talks and creatives walk, I could see Sony getting desperate and be like, "Hey guys, Naughty Dog, knocking on the door. We're going to need a new Last of Us Part 2. And we're going to need you to change the story. And then we're going to need you to continue the series." Which would be like a stop the presses moment where they're like, "Wait, what about the original?" We're like, "Nope, don't worry about it. We're doing something different. and we have a whole different series in mind and a different direction to go with it. Comment section Anon says, nah, they would never do that. I know it sounds crazy. But if there's infinite money, people do crazy things. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing it out there and see what sticks with it. Because if something like that happened, we need to reference this stream right now and be like, remember when Smash was just throwing that shit out there? Mental Crash says, when has that ever happened? I don't think it has. I mean, except for, like I said, Dexter. Well, I guess that was for the TV show, where the TV show could go a different direction. But as far as like a game coming out and then a different sequel coming out that takes it a different direction, Final Fantasy Rebirth, I guess you could say, kind of takes Final Fantasy VII in a different direction a little bit. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing crazy stuff out there. I don't know. It's something that, in a weird, fucked up way, I have like this sick, twisted dream of that happening, and it would be so glorious to be like, oh, Last of Us is so fucking back. Man, it is like a downpour outside right now. I don't have a leaky roof, though. Don't worry. We're good. During the 6-month production on season 2, largely in British Columbia, Mazin regularly checked in with Ramsey to ensure then 20-year-old was physically okay following a day of intense stunt sequences. I feel like Bella broke her leg in the middle of the day. She wouldn't tell me until the next day. Okay, so what's this? When I relay Mazin's observation to Ramsey, who uses both she, her, and they, them pronouns, they break into a smile. All right, now I'm really fucking confused. Are you talking about they? As in Mazin is with you? And Ramsey's there? Or are you referencing Ramsey because they go by they? This is why you don't do this with pronouns, by the way, guys. But Mazin's notion that absolutely nothing would rattle them is Ramsey says only half accurate. Okay, let's skip ahead because there's a lot here. Even though anyone who's played part 2 or just reads its Wikipedia page knows which scene Ramsey is likely talking about, Mazin and Druckmann feign ignorance when the second season's massive twist is even obliquely raised. But they clearly understand the tightrope they have to walk while adapting the game for TV. They must satisfy fans in the know while still captivating their larger audience, who are watching with fresh eyes. Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you guys, 35 plus million people watching, and there's a lot of ignorant viewers just watching a show not knowing anything about it. I wouldn't be surprised if more than half of the people watching don't know the twist. So if that's the case, the twist, the massive twist might actually be him not dying. I know it sounds crazy for me to say that, but just this right here, where they feign ignorance with the massive twist, maybe they're thinking something different about it. Maybe I'm reading too far into it. All right, let's skip ahead to the part 3 because this just goes on and on and on. This is one of those, it should have been a video. Why? When you have an article this long with all these quotes, it should just play the video of him interviewing with you. Like, what the hell is all this curated stuff? All right, here we go. Then there's the long whispered possibility of The Last of Us Part 3. I was waiting for this question, Druckmann says, sighing. When I bring up the prospect of a third game, I guess the only thing I would say is don't bet on there being more of Last of Us. This could be it. Not if Sony comes knocking. I'm telling you guys, money talks, and this is a series where they are leaving infinite money on the table. No matter the show's long-term prospects, with a renewal all but guaranteed from HBO, Mazin and Druckmann will soon start their process all over again. I've been feeling scared lately about like, oh yeah, I have to start thinking about season 3, Mazin says. I remember having this feeling when we were finishing season 1, where I was like, how the fuck are we going to top this? Now, of course, I'm like, how the fuck are we going to top this? So interesting direction. And yes, I know people hate me for enjoying it. Oh, is this the video? There is a video.
Just adventure games. And those were these millions of fans who gush about how much I love that show and like just pick his brain about how he put it together and how he wrote it and how long was he working on it. And as I'm there in this lunch with this guy, and he wanted to meet me as well.
Maybe a video isn't better. It's boring. But yeah, I'm looking forward to season 2 of The Last of Us. And I'm very curious as to what's going to happen after Neil Druckmann eventually at some point moves on from Naughty Dog. And if the wokeness has completely destroyed that studio and there's no coming back for it, or if they're going to actually get a leader in charge that gives a shit about making great games and pushes forward with a passion to make those games come out again. Because right now, what's coming out? Intergalactic, that intergalactic game, which, my goodness, that game's going to flop so bad it's not even funny. So we'll see, but I'll leave that one there.